Chosen one, stop scrolling right now. This is not just another video crossing your screen. This is God's message, reaching you in exact divine timing, and the reason your attention just snapped into focus is because this message is about you. What you are feeling is not curiosity, and it is not coincidence. It is recognition. This video exists to reveal why you were guided here, why your path has been so intensely shaped, and why the moment you chose to stay is the moment your spiritual awakening began. If you keep watching, you will understand what has been happening behind the scenes of your life and why nothing was ever random. Chosen one, you have always known your life carried more weight than what others could see. You felt it in the delays, the resistance, the way your journey seemed heavier and more demanding than those around you. You questioned yourself, wondering why progress came through struggle and why clarity was earned through pressure. But this video is here to expose the truth. What you called delay was divine protection. What you called struggle was preparation. And what you called confusion was alignment forming. This message will explain why you were never failing, never rejected, never lost, only protected, positioned, and prepared. Stay with this until the end, because what you are about to realize will change how you see your entire journey as a chosen one. This is a message from God, and it is not here to entertain you. It is here to confirm you. The moment you stayed to listen, something began to shift. That is how spiritual awakening begins. Not with noise, not with spectacle, but with stillness. With truth landing softly and deeply, bypassing logic, and going straight to recognition. You were not imagining the war you felt around your life. You were not exaggerating the pressure. The war is real, and it has always been about your light. Chosen one, people tried to block you. Systems tried to slow you down. Circumstances tried to corner you into believing you were small, late, or unworthy. Doors closed without explanation. Support vanished without warning. Paths collapsed just when you thought you were finally moving forward. But none of that was strong enough to cancel what God placed on your life. They tried to interfere, but God overrode every plan, quietly, precisely, completely. This is the truth. Many never hear when you carry a divine calling and chosen. One energy, opposition, shows up early, not because you are weak, but because your presence disrupts what depends on fear and limitation. Even when you were unsure of yourself, even when you were still becoming, your light was already noticeable. And anything that carries light attracts resistance before it attracts recognition. God's message today is not asking you to fight harder. It is asking you to remember who you are. You were called before you were confident. You were chosen before you were ready. And every delay you experienced was not punishment. It was preparation. God was shielding you from outcomes you could not yet see, removing people who could not go with you, and slowing your steps so your foundation could hold what is coming. If you have felt isolated, misunderstood, or out of place, it is not because you do not belong. It is because you belong to something higher. Chosen ones often walk alone before they walk aligned. The isolation was never abandonment, it was insulation. God was protecting your spirit while shaping your discernment. He was teaching you to hear Him before the noise returned. This moment right now is a divine interruption, a pause placed in your life so truth can speak without competition. And the truth is this: your life has not been wasted. Your suffering was not random. Your waiting was not pointless. You were being preserved. You were being prepared. You were being kept for a time when your light would be necessary, not optional. Circle back to the beginning of this message and hear it again with fresh clarity. This is a message from God. You are not imagining it. You are called. The war around you was real because your light is real, and that light is needed. Now, you are not here to shrink, to blend in, or to stay silent. You are here because alignment brought you here. If this touched your soul, if something inside you knows this is true even without proof, comment 111, because you know it now, deep in your spirit. You were called. The attempted blockage. Chosen one, let us return to what you have lived through, not to reopen wounds, but to finally understand them. This is still a message from God, and it is meant to reframe the past so it no longer has power over you. What you experienced was not random, and it was not simply bad luck, poor timing, or personal failure. What felt confusing, unfair, or deeply painful was often spiritual before it was human. There were moments when people misunderstood you so completely that you questioned your own clarity. You spoke with honesty and were met with silence. You showed loyalty and were met with distance. You brought effort, sincerity, and vision, and somehow it was minimized, overlooked, or quietly resisted. Doors closed without warning. Promises dissolved without explanation. Support vanished at the very moment it mattered most. And because you are reflective by nature, you turned inward and asked, "What did I do wrong?" But hear this now, clearly and without doubt. Much of what you took personally was never personal. It was positional. You were standing in a place that threatened comfort, control, or familiarity. As a chosen one, your presence alone disrupts environments that rely on sameness and limitation. You do not have to be loud to be disruptive. You do not have to be perfect to be noticed. Your energy carries truth, and truth unsettles what survives on illusion. This is why chosen ones are always targeted quietly, rarely through open confrontation, but through exclusion, delay, subtle sabotage, and strategic silence. People did not always attack you directly. Instead, they stopped returning calls, they withheld information. They changed the rules without telling you. They supported you until you began to outgrow the role they were comfortable with. And when that happened, resistance appeared. This is where human interference meets divine authority. People can try to block access, delay progress, or distort narratives, but they cannot override what God has assigned. They can attempt to interrupt timing, but they cannot cancel destiny. What you experienced were attempts to delay your alignment, not deny your calling. That is why it felt exhausting instead of defeating, heavy but not final. Chosen one, betrayal did not come because you were naive. It came because you were genuine in a world that often rewards masks. Rejection did not happen because you were inadequate. It happened because your growth threatened established dynamics. Silence was not proof that you were invisible. It was proof that others did not know how to respond to what you carried. This is the beginning of understanding what it means to be blocked but blessed. The very things that tried to stop you were the same things that forced you to become stronger, wiser, and more discerning. Every closed door taught you where not to return. Every broken agreement taught you to trust God over words. Every sudden ending removed something that could not follow you forward. God's intervention does not always look like rescue in the moment. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like loss. Sometimes it looks like being left alone to figure things out the hard way. But divine protection is rarely comfortable. It is precise. God allowed opposition not to harm you, but to refine you. He allowed resistance not to break you, but to redirect you. You were underestimated because people could only see your present, not your purpose. They measured you by what you were willing to show, not by what God was developing in you privately. And when they realized you could not be controlled, rushed or diminished, distance became their response. That distance was not abandonment. It was alignment taking shape. Chosen one, the war you felt around your life was real. It showed up in delays that made no sense, in opportunities that dissolved just before success, in relationships that soured the moment you began to grow. And because you did not see the full picture, you questioned yourself instead of recognizing the pattern. But now you can see it. Light always attracts resistance before it attracts support. This is divine protection at work. God was preventing premature access, preventing wrong alliances, preventing outcomes that would have cost you more than they gave. If certain plans had succeeded too early, they would have locked you into versions of your life that were too small for what you are meant to carry now. Circle back to the beginning of this truth and let it settle fully. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you went through. You were called, and because you were called, interference appeared. The war was real because your light is real, and that light is not optional. It is necessary. Everything that tried to block you failed. You are still here, still aware, still becoming, still aligned. And now, you are no longer confused by the past. You are empowered by it. If this touched your soul, if something inside you knows this explains more than words ever could, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called. God overrode the plan. Chosen one, now we speak about what you could not see while you were inside it. This is still a message from God, and it is meant to bring peace to places in you that carried unanswered questions for too long. What felt like loss was not loss. What felt like failure was not failure. What felt like being blocked was divine protection operating quietly, precisely, and with intention. There were moments you thought you missed your chance, opportunities you were sure were meant for you that suddenly disappeared, paths you committed to that collapsed without warning, people you trusted, planned with, or loved that did not stay. At the time it felt cruel, confusing, unfair. You replayed those moments and wondered what would have happened if things had worked out differently. But now it is time to see the truth that was hidden from you then. Those were not mistakes. They were rescues. God's intervention rarely announces itself. It does not explain itself while it is happening. It moves behind the scenes, outside of logic, protecting outcomes you cannot yet imagine. There were doors you begged God to open that He kept closed because He could see what you could not. There were situations that looked like advancement but carried long-term harm. There were connections that felt aligned emotionally but were misaligned spiritually. And God, in His wisdom, removed you before the cost became permanent. This is divine protection in action. Not dramatic, not loud, but exact. Chosen one, think about the paths you almost took, the decisions you were close to making, the environments you were ready to commit to. If you are honest, you can now see that staying would have required you to shrink, compromise, or abandon parts of yourself you were only beginning to understand. God did not block those paths to punish you. He blocked them to preserve you. He knew your spirit could not survive long-term in places that did not honor your growth. There were people you wanted to stay with, but they could not grow at the pace your calling required. You tried to slow yourself down to keep the connection, but it never worked. Tension increased. Confusion grew. Distance appeared. And eventually, separation happened. At the time, it felt like rejection, but in truth, it was redirection. God was removing relationships that would have required you to carry others while neglecting your own assignment. Delays that frustrated you were delays that saved you. Had things moved faster, you would have arrived unprepared. Had success come earlier, you would have been surrounded by the wrong influences. Had answers come immediately, you would not have developed discernment. God was not withholding from you, He was strengthening you. This is how divine strategy works. God does not rush what must be rooted. He does not expose what must be protected. And He does not elevate what has not been fortified internally. Every pause in your life had purpose. Every waiting season built capacity. Every unanswered prayer refined your understanding of what truly matters. Chosen one, nothing truly valuable was ever taken from you. If it left, it was not meant to stay. If it failed, it was not meant to last. If it collapsed, it was not built on the foundation required for where you are going. What was meant for you remained untouched, even when everything around it seemed unstable. This is why, despite everything you went through, something essential in you survived. Your awareness deepened, your intuition sharpened, your connection to God strengthened. You did not come out empty. You came out clearer. That clarity is not accidental. It is the result of God's intervention shaping you through experience rather than explanation. God's message today is not asking you to revisit regret. It is asking you to release it. The version of your life you imagined back then would not have fulfilled the version of you that exists now. You outgrew those outcomes before they ever arrived. And God, seeing the full picture, made sure you were not locked into something that could not evolve with you. As a divine calling and chosen one, your life required precision. Not everything could be allowed. Not everyone could stay. Not every opportunity could succeed. God had to be selective because your light carries responsibility. Your presence shifts environments. Your awareness challenges comfort. And that level of influence requires protection long before recognition. The war you felt was not proof that you were losing. It was proof that something significant was being guarded. Opposition appeared because what you carry matters. Resistance showed up because your alignment was forming. And even when it felt like everything was falling apart, God was actually assembling your life with intention. Circle back to the beginning of this message and let it land fully. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you survived. You were called, and because you were called, your life required divine protection at levels others may never understand. The war was real. The resistance was real. And so is your light. Nothing that tried to stop you succeeded. You are still here, still aware, still aligned. And now you are no longer questioning the past. You are standing in understanding. That is power. If this touched your soul, if clarity just replaced confusion, comment 111, because you know it now. Without doubt, you were called. The awakening moment. Chosen one, this is the moment where everything quietly changes. Not with noise, not with announcement, but with certainty. You may not have noticed it immediately, but something has shifted inside you. Your reactions are different now. What once pulled at your emotions no longer has the same grip. What once demanded your attention now feels distant. This is not numbness. This is clarity. This is spiritual awakening, unfolding in real time. You are no longer fighting to be understood. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth, your intentions, or your vision. The urge to explain yourself has faded, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped doubting. Inner authority is returning, and it does not announce itself. It settles in quietly, like truth finally finding a place to rest. This is what happens when God overrides a plan. He does not only move obstacles out of the way, He upgrades the chosen one who had to walk through them. Your discernment is sharper now. You sense misalignment before it speaks. You feel peace where you once felt pressure. You recognize red flags without needing proof. This is divine protection becoming internal, no longer dependent on circumstances. Old fears feel distant because they no longer define your decisions. Old limits feel irrelevant because you can see beyond them now. You are not trying to outrun your past or prove your growth. You have outgrown the cycle entirely. This separation did not happen overnight, and it did not happen by accident. God was slowly removing you from patterns that kept repeating until you were ready to stop returning. Chosen one, notice how certain things no longer drain you the way they used to. Conversations that once required effort now feel unnecessary. Situations that once demanded compromise now feel optional. You are not hardened. You are aligned. You are no longer available for what costs you your peace. That is not avoidance. That is wisdom earned through experience. This spiritual awakening is subtle but powerful. It shows up as calm instead of chaos, as grounded confidence instead of urgency, as quiet knowing instead of constant questioning. You are not rushing anymore. You are not chasing validation or forcing outcomes. You trust timing because you have seen what happens when God intervenes without explanation. Being blocked but blessed is no longer a concept to you. It is a lived experience. You can see now that the blocks were temporary, but the positioning is permanent. You were delayed so you could be redirected. You were separated so you could be protected. You were slowed down so you could be strengthened. And now you stand in a place where nothing essential is missing. Chosen one, your energy has changed because your understanding has changed. You no longer need to announce who you are becoming. Your presence speaks for itself. You no longer argue with people who misunderstand you. You no longer shrink to fit spaces you have outgrown. Confidence without explanation has replaced anxiety without answers. This is the season where you stop carrying what was never yours to begin with. Old guilt, old responsibility, old expectations placed on you by people who could not see your future. You release them without anger, without resentment, and without apology. This is not detachment from life. This is alignment with purpose. Divine protection is active now in a different way. Instead of constantly rescuing you from external situations, God has strengthened your inner compass. You trust yourself because you trust God. You listen before reacting. You move with intention instead of impulse. And because of this, fewer things can reach you the way they used to. Chosen one, you are no longer blocked, not because the world changed, but because you did. The same situations may still exist, but they no longer control you. The same people may still misunderstand you, but their misunderstanding no longer defines you. You have stepped into a position where your clarity protects you more than force ever could. This awakening confirms what has always been true. You were never meant to stay small, stuck, or silent. The resistance you faced was preparation. The pressure refined you, and the waiting taught you to hear God clearly, even when nothing around you made sense. Circle back now to the beginning of this message, and let it settle deeply. This is a message from God. You are not imagining this shift. You were called, and because you were called, the war around you was real. But so is your light, and that light is necessary. It carries calm where there was chaos, truth where there was confusion, direction where there was delay. You are no longer asking if you are ready, you are realizing that you already are. The season has changed, the alignment is clear, and you are standing exactly where you need to be. If this touched your soul, if you feel this truth anchoring inside you, comment 111, because you know it now. You were called. The blessing that cannot be blocked. Chosen one, this is where everything settles into place. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with quiet certainty. This is still God's message, and it is closing the circle it opened at the beginning. You are not imagining what you feel right now. You are called. And because you are called, your path could never be ordinary, easy, or unguarded. What comes next does not require force. It does not require proving yourself to anyone. It does not require permission, approval, or validation. That season is over. The next season moves by alignment, not effort. What God has planned for you advances because it is supported by divine authority, not because you push it forward. You have already done the hard part. You endured. You waited. You learned. Now you trust. Quiet confidence has replaced urgency. You no longer feel the need to announce your growth or explain your decisions. You understand that what is meant for you recognizes you without introduction. This is what happens when a divine calling and chosen one finally accepts their position. You stop chasing outcomes and start walking in agreement with timing. Every delay refined you. It strengthened your discernment and deepened your patience. Every block redirected you, even when you could not see where you were being led. Every attempt to stop you failed, not because the opposition was weak, but because God's intervention was stronger. What stood against you did not stand a chance, even when it felt overwhelming at the time. You are living proof of being blocked, but blessed. What was blocked saved you from settling too early. What was blocked protected you from carrying what could not last. What was blocked preserved your energy, your spirit, and your future. Nothing essential was lost. Everything important was guarded. This is the season where movement feels lighter, not because responsibility disappeared, but because resistance has lost its grip. You are no longer dragging the weight of confusion or self-doubt. You move with clarity now. You choose with confidence. You rest without guilt. And that is not complacency. That is alignment. Trusting God's timing no longer feels like a challenge. It feels logical. You have seen what happens when God delays something. You have lived through what happens when He intervenes quietly. You understand now that He was never late, He was precise. And because of that precision, what is coming can finally stay. Circle back once more to the truth that began this entire message. This is a message from God. You are not imagining your journey. You were called, and because you were called, your life required protection, resistance, and refinement. The war was real because your light is real, and that light is necessary. It brings clarity where there is confusion, stability where there is chaos, direction where there is delay. What God has prepared for you cannot be blocked. It does not depend on people agreeing with you. It does not depend on systems opening doors for you. It moves forward because it is assigned to you, quietly, effortlessly, at the right time. If this message resonated, if you felt recognized and grounded, comment 777 as a sign of alignment and agreement, not for anyone else, but as acknowledgement that you understand what this season represents. And if this touched your soul, if something inside you knows this truth without needing proof, comment 111, because you know it now with certainty. You were called.